If you've ever set a budget and felt good about it for a week or two and then watched it completely fall apart by week 3, you're not alone. Most people are trying to control their finances without actually ever getting clear on what matters to them in the first place. So they obsess over small purchases, they try to cut out everything, they feel guilty every time they spend money on something that actually brings them joy, and they constantly rely on self-control to stay on track. But eventually that gets exhausting, because when every financial decision relies on willpower, real life comes in swinging hard and eventually wins. In this video, I want to show you a better way to filter your financial decisions, so that way you can stop relying on willpower and actually feel good about the money that you're spending. Most people are using surface level financial control tactics instead of solving the underlying issues. They're obsessing over tiny purchases, while realistically they're cutting out smaller pleasures while ignoring the bigger money leaks. They try tracking every single dollar endlessly, and they treat themselves like a full-time accountant, creating rigid spreadsheets and budgets that they don't end up following for too long. And they try to be good with their money, but you can cut out every single cup of coffee for a year and still have no idea where any of your money went. And that's because a lot of people just try to manage their money through control instead of clarity and alignment. But none of those are actually the root problems, they're just the symptoms. Most financial systems rely on constant self-control and repeated decision making, right? Like constantly trying to decide on what's allowed, feeling guilty about the things that they're spending their money on, relying on motivation to stay on track, and really just having repeated financial decision fatigue on top of all the other decisions we have to make every single day. Having to sit there and make decisions on their finances, it just becomes emotionally exhausting, especially if you're trying to become over controlling. And this is really why restrictive budgeting ends up backfiring most of the time. And the way this shows up is rebound behavior from these all or nothing cycles. It's kind of like trying to get in shape or lose weight, right? Like once people decide that they want to lose the weight, they'll cut out all the bad food, they'll start trying to eat healthy every single meal, they'll go from couch potato to going to the gym 5-7 days a week. And for the first few weeks, they probably end up losing some weight, but eventually they fall off track, they rebound, they regain all the weight they lost, and they stop going to the gym and end up in a worse position and a worse relationship with food than if they had just taken a practical approach and started changing their lifestyle and their habits rather than just going on this all-in approach. And it's the same thing with finances. You decide that you want to make a change, you want to pay off your debt, you want to start saving for retirement, whatever it is. You create this really rigid budget, you cut out all this fun stuff and the enjoyment for your life and just try and go in this restrictive monk mode. But realistically, it's not a smooth transition and it's not sustainable. And this is where people end up in these guilt, shame, and avoidance cycles where they just don't even want to deal with it anymore. That's a tomorrow problem. I'll deal with it later. But realistically, if you stop taking an all-in type of approach and have some fluidity with it, along with knowing what your priorities are and having those values thought through, it's kind of like one unhealthy meal isn't going to completely ruin your health, just like one bad spending week or one bad spending month isn't going to completely ruin your financial situation. So if restriction and willpower aren't the answer here, what actually works better? Well, it comes down to mindful spending, and that takes a lot deeper thinking, right? The word values and mindfulness, those are heavy reflective words. But when you genuinely know what matters to you, financial decisions become a lot easier and they become less emotionally draining. Something that really helped me out with this was figuring out how much money I was actually making and the things that I was purchasing, like how much of that of my life was it actually taking up. If I was making, let's say $20 an hour and I go out to dinner, it's $100. Was that $100, 1 to 2 hours at dinner worth 5 hours of my life? So I started filtering through, was the time and energy that cost me to make this money worth the purchases that I was making? And also, do these purchases that I'm making actually improve my life? Are they bringing me joy? Are they actually bringing me closer to my goals? Am I spending intentionally or am I spending reactively? Am I just swiping my card on something that's I'm probably not even going to remember what it was? Or was this $7 cup of coffee actually bringing joy to my day and week? So the question isn't, are you overspending? It's, are you spending without intention? Because realistically, when you know what matters to you most, you know what your values are, you're mindfully spending your money and your resources on things that are in alignment with your values, bringing joy to your life, actually enhancing it. You stop needing to rely on guilt or motivation or like a really strict budget to make these type of decisions and actually stay on track. That's because sustainable financial behavior comes from alignment, habits, and systems, not trying to follow perfectionism. If you keep this type of thing top of mind, it really really helps you to course correct when you fall off, right? Like, because even if you have like the perfect system, you know what your priorities are, you know what's important to you as a person, and the role that you play in other people's lives, you're still going to veer off track. We're all human, we do that, but it helps you course correct because you already have the mission, the plan, you know what season of life you're in that you're working towards, and it's really easy to just say no to those things that don't really matter, no to the things that aren't bringing you towards your future, and then yes to the things that do. So if you want to start making this shift today and you want just one thing to do, write down the top 3 priorities that you have in your life in general and consider how your finances impact those 3 priorities that you have, or how those 3 priorities impact your finances. So we're not talking about creating a budget, we're not talking about going through spreadsheets or anything like that. We're just writing down the top 3 things that actually matter to you in your life right now and how they impact you financially, or how your finances impact those top 3 things, and just work on cutting down everything else that's not on those top 3 priorities. So everything that's not on that list that doesn't affect those 3 priorities for you, just work on cutting them down. And that's where real alignment starts, and everything else is built from there. So if you're in a place where you want a financial reset and want to start working towards your long-term goals, I put together a full video walking through exactly what I would do if I was going into my 30s and 40s and starting over again financially. So that video will be linked down in the video description below. Go ahead and click it and watch it next. And if you're ready to start taking action now, I put together a free 7-day financial reset, which is basically a step-by-step challenge that's going to walk you through everything you need to lay out the foundations for your financial future. So if you're ready to just hit that financial reset button right now, go ahead to the link below and join the challenge in the description. And don't forget to like this video, subscribe to my channel, and I'll catch you in the next one.